Hi guys and welcome to the circus. So today, as promised, I'll be showcasing another deck profile for you guys of the bunny man himself, Tilaipse. A few weeks ago, or probably already been like a month ago, I shared a very spicy deck profile with Tilaipse and with Harry in the same deck. By the way, if you haven't checked it out, please do watch it because it's very spicy. And in the comment section of that video, I asked you guys if you still want me to make a deck profile with Tilaipse, but this time it's the Doriane variant. Some of you guys wanted it and I also want to showcase it myself, so why not, right? I know that this is already a bit late, but better late than never, right? So with that out of the way, let's not waste more of your time. Let's take a look at the deck list. So, talking about this deck in comparison to the previous two versions that I showcased before, this version I think is the most stable one. I feel like this deck is the most adaptive version of the deck. It's also one of the easiest versions to play because you can fill up the board with basically anything and then Doriane just scoops it in at the end phase, you draw a bunch of cards and then there you go. Basically, the main difference of this deck amongst the rest is it has a farming engine. Just having Doriane in the deck gives you a lot of survivability. One of the main issues of the previous versions is that it doesn't have that much hand size. Even though you have 4 drives overall in a single turn, besides from your main Vanguard's twin drive, you only have +1 overall because of 1 additional Vanguard swing. You might say that, oh, it's a +2 because it's another twin drive, right? But remember that regardless of it being Chlorina or GBT, you always need to have 1 card in your hand to put into the soul, meaning you -1 first before you +2. So it's basically +1. You also might say that, oh, you +2 from Tilaipse, right? No, you actually don't. You just break even because you put 2 cards from your hand to the soul and then call 2 out. Unless you're putting to soul some cards that doesn't really have shield value, it's fine. You're not really plussing, you're just breaking even. But like basically the bottom line is the rest of the versions besides from this doesn't have that much plus. So this version with Doriane in the mix enables you to plus a lot more than usual. First of all, unlike Chlorina or GBT, you don't have to minus yourself 1 first in order to use the skill, meaning you can keep the twin drive, just the twin drive alone, meaning you +2. And you also plus from Doriane's skill at the end phase, so it's just a lot of plussing. Another thing you can do with this deck is that, as I mentioned in the beginning, this deck can adapt into situations. Because besides from Doriane as the additional Vanguard, remember that you also have Chlorina in your deck. What I mean by being adaptive here is that after you farm a bunch of hand cards and you notice that you need to push now because this deck lacks a bit of offense compared to the previous versions where you just go unga bunga. If you know that you need to push now, you can just choose Chlorina as your additional Vanguard that turn and then you can still do your Chlorina plays. And if you have Doriane still, as I mentioned before, you can still farm at the same time. So you can switch between these two as your additional Vanguards depending on what you want in that situation, right? Which is really nice to have. Unlike just being a very aggro deck like the first version that I showcased, or being passive for the turn just to farm cards and survive, this deck can do both of that, which is also why I really enjoy this version. Maybe I can possibly showcase more details in the game flow part of the video, so stay tuned for that. So when it comes to the offense part of this deck, you can rely on 2 cards that I have here in my list, which are Rising Dragon and Jumping Jill. So in the first version of Tilaipse that I showcased way back then, these 2 are also in that deck list, and I still kept it because so far in our current card pool, these 2 are the strongest generic units that we have. And on top of the power that Tilaipse gives, it's just a very powerful unit. It can make magic numbers easily. So it's very solid and it's really fun to work with these 2. So that's the game plan of the deck. And now to showcase more details, let's take a look at the deck list. Okay, so let's take a look at the grade 3s first. Of course, we're gonna be running the 4 copies of Tilaipse because it's our main boy unit that we want to ride into every single game. But like riding onto Doriane is also not too bad. I am running 4 unlike the other list that I saw before. Maybe they just don't want to open more copies of Doriane, but like in my opinion it's fine because remember that Doriane also can fetch herself from the soul to your hand if you moved at least 4 units from your board to the soul at the end phase, right? You can just shove one of those copies in the soul using Tilaipse's skill, and then at the end phase if you moved 4 cards on your board to your soul, you can just fetch back that Doriane from your soul to your hand. So meaning your Tilaipse in that moment is actually a +1. not breaking even, which is honestly really nice. But if you don't want to run too much Doriane, you can just cut it to 3 and then put in something that you want in the deck instead. Again, there's no harm in running 4, but the soft spot is always going to be 3 copies. Next, moving on to the grade 2s, we're running 4 copies of Clarina, of course, because it's the additional Vanguard that you want to have. It's the multi-attacker of the deck. Again, you can still use Doriane and Clarina in a single turn. So far in all of my games with this deck, it happened quite frequently, and it's really nice to have it. Like, producing one more attack plus drawing a bunch of cards is always going to be really nice. Next, for the utility grade 2s, we're running 2 copies of Jumping Gel and 2 copies of Rising Dragon. Okay, so when it comes to these two, you can actually switch between the two. You can run 4 Gel or 4 Rising Dragon depending on your taste or your playstyle. It's almost the same because your magic numbers will always depend on the number of bunnies that you have with Tilaipse's skill. One of the main reasons that I run the split ratio is because of Jill alone, because Jill is a very good grade 2 game extender. If you have Clarina as your Vanguard on grade 2, right, and you have the pieces to multi-attack whilst keeping your soul intact, your Jill can really help a lot in that scenario. Having a solid grade 2 game is always going to be appreciated, so that's why I ran the split 2 copies of each. Also, one more thing that I want to say is that depending on what you run, whether it's Rising Dragon or Jill, each of this requires a different board setup. What I want you guys to remember is Jill works best working on a column, while Rising Dragon works best working on the Excel circle. That's the main difference of these two, so keep that in mind. And if you're running the split 2-2 like me, always check your resources first in your soul before you call out your soul or place your units anywhere on the board, because again, as I said in the beginning, these two requires different setups. I'll try my best on showcasing the different setup in the game flow part of the video. Okay, so final grade 2 lineup. I am really glad that I can play this again, which are 3 copies of Endive Beast Tamer. The moment that I heard of Beast Tamers coming back, I immediately thought of Endive Beast Tamer along with Golden Beast Tamer. This is one of my favorite Pale Moon cards, not gonna lie, because in the beginning where I was still a newbie in the game, I relied on this card a lot of times. Back when I can only play like rares and commons in a deck, this is my favorite card. This is my saving grace. Basically, her function here is to fill up the board. That's basically it. And it's not restricted behind any grade. You can just call anything. One of the main disadvantages of the Doriane build is that it empties out your board. Unless you have a very consistent way on filling up the board again, you're losing a lot of your units on the board that can just stay there instead of moving back to the soul, right? Even though you're drawing a bunch of cards, it feels bad to keep committing 4 or more cards from your hand to the board every single turn just to have Doriane available, right? So with Endive Beast Tamer in your hand or in your soul, you can fill up the board very consistently. It just requires 1 more CB. She's multifunctional, by the way. First of all, she's a beast tamer, which is very nice. It's searchable via Amusing Bunny if you lack her. Second, it's a grade 2, meaning you can call it out via Tilaipse, which makes her a lot better because you can just call like a Clarina and an Endive Beast Tamer, and then Clarina as your additional Vanguard, right? And then you have Endive Beast Tamer, Ras CB1, and call another full column, which is very nice. One of the main throwbacks of this card is it's a 5k base. You don't really mind that because you just rest her, right? But if you're forced in a situation where you need to ride her, it really feels bad. I would say that you have to be careful with this card because it can happen sometimes, you know? If you're afraid of that happening, maybe you can just remove one of this and then you can put in 1 more utility card perhaps. I won't blame you for it because it really is scary to just ride this and just do nothing. It's just a 5k base. It's even worse than a grade 1. But yeah, beyond that, it's a very amazing card. I'm just really glad that I can play her again after such a long time. Next, moving on to grade 1. So pretty standard grade 1 lineup. 4 copies of Masquerade Bunny, 4 copies of Amusing Bunny, and then 3 copies of Midnight Bunny and 3 copies of Brassy Bunny. Sorry, it's a bit messed up. So we went back to Midnight Bunny because it's always nice to soul charge 1 randomly, unless you're soul charging a trigger, of course. The on hit can come up sometimes if you have the CB for it. And of course, the 4 obs are still Amusing Bunny and Masquerade Bunny because they're your main searchers. Brassy Bunny is always clutch, and Midnight Bunny for the on hit pressure. And yeah, this is the grade 1 lineup. Again, you can still switch ratios with this. Maybe run 4 Brassy to Midnight or 4 Midnight to Brassy. Depends on you. Okay, triggers. So, triggers, 6 crit, 6 draw, 4 heal guard, and the starter. 6 crit, 6 draw, same as my other deck profiles for Tilaipse. The deck still needs a bit of pieces here and there and digging through the deck, so 2 more additional draws is fine. 4 heal guard, of course, because you want to survive. And yeah, this is the deck list. So that was the deck list, and now let's take a look at how this deck functions during a game. Okay, so welcome to the game flow part of the video. So here we're going to be showcasing hopefully the potential of the deck and how the deck functions as a whole. So let's proceed with shuffling the deck first and draw our first 5 cards. So let's see. Masquerade Bunny, Amusing Bunny, Draw Trigger, Chlorina, and Masquerade Bunny. So, Amusing Bunny is like a very nice ride target, of course, to search our grade 3s. This is the best ride target. This can search out our grade 3s, so it's actually fine to keep these and just put back the Draw Trigger. It's fine. So, draw into a crit, which is arguably better, question mark, or worse. I don't know. Let's just proceed with this. And let's proceed by drawing first. We went first, assuming we draw into Doriane, which is really nice. We only need Tilaipse at this point. Right, Amusing Bunny, draw a card. Oh, there he is. So let's proceed with checking top 7, plus ourselves with a potential Beast Tamer from the top 7 cards. So as I said before, Endive Beast Tamer is a Beast Tamer, so you can fetch it, fetch this, and put 1 card from your soul to from your hand to your soul. With that, we plussed ourselves a bit. We started to piece things all together in order to make our Doriane pop off on our first grade 3 turn. So let's proceed with putting 1 card from our hand to the soul. I think we'll just put a Masquerade Bunny to soul and then proceed by taking 1 damage because our opponent went second. Draw trigger, really nice high roll there, and draw into a Rising Dragon, which is not bad at all. So now let's proceed with our draw phase, draw card, and ride on to Chlorina. So we do have 2 bunnies overall now in our soul, so we need 1 more, which is where Masquerade Bunny comes in. Let us call the Masquerade Bunny here, and then use Masquerade Bunny's skill on place, check top 5 for a grade 3. There's a Tilaipse, there's a Doriane, and nothing more, nothing less. Let us actually fetch the Doriane. This is not too bad of a fetch. And instead of ditching it, maybe it's worth to keep it, in my opinion, because you can put it in the soul and then fetch it back again, so that your Tilaipse is actually a +1. Let's just ditch the crit. Yep, let's ditch the crit. Okay, so with this, we have the twin drive established. I think this is fine. Yeah, this is fine. So we don't have anything else to make our grade 2 game solid. Just by having twin drive already without that much commitment is already an amazing plus on our end. And yeah, let's proceed with this. Let's swing for 17 using the skill of Chlorina to put the Rising Dragon to soul, call out Amusing Bunny, and this converts to a 22k twin drive. So first check, Tilaipse, second check, draw power here, and then draw card. And then this swings for 18, hits over a defensive against an 8k base because they're still at grade 1. Moving this to soul at the end of the battle, and then passing over to the opponent. So right here, I think we would much rather just get 1 more damage through, because we have Endive Beast Tamer in our hand. It's always nice overall to have at least 2 damage on our initial grade 3 turn, because 1 CB is for our Tilaipse, and then the other one is just potentially for anything that requires a CB. So it's nice to take 1 damage, nothing there, and then maybe guard a bit if you need to guard. Let's say we guarded for like 5k, and then let's proceed with our first grade 3 turn, stand in and draw. We drew into too much Doriane, which is quite bad at this point, but like, oh well. Ride into Tilaipse, get XL2, draw card. You can potentially go XL1 if you want to, but like, I just prefer the draw because it's nice to have a draw every now and then. So with this, we can now call Doriane here. Okay, so the thing about Doriane is that unlike Chlorina, it needs to be called down first like GBT, because you can't call grade 3s from soul using Tilaipse's skill, because Tilaipse can only call grade 2 or lower, and Chlorina as well. So you need to call Doriane here, or unless you have an Endive Beast Tamer in hand already, you can call it out, because Endive can call any grade as long as it's on a column. Okay, so with this, let's proceed to using our Tilaipse's skill CB1. So when it comes to cost, in this case, if you have additional Dorianes like I do, just put it in the soul because it's a plus as well. If you have like spare grade 3 so you don't want to have in your hand anymore, you can just put it in the soul. In this case, 2 Dorianes is fine. Just put it in the soul and call 2 cards from soul. Okay, when it comes to the calling part, the one Rising Dragon that you put earlier, you can put it here. And 1 more card, I think preferably 1 copy of this over here is fine. And then this gets plus 5k. This is the additional Vanguard, by the way, because it's the only other Beast Tamer you have in your board right now. This gets plus 5k as well. This gets plus 10k. And then overall, how many bunnies do we have? 1 in soul, 2 in board. So plus 3,000 to the front row for the turn. And then you can just call this down because you need 4 cards, right? This is already 19 plus 3, so it's 22 already, which hits over a defensive slash a heal guardian, which is very, very nice. So with this, it's already established actually because you have 4 units for Doriane's skill. And with Endive Beast Tamer in our hand, you can just revert it back to the board anyway next turn as long as you have the CB. So next, let's proceed with the battle phase. So in this case, remember to play around heals, guys, okay? That's one of the main tips that I want to give to everyone, especially new to the game, is to play around heals. Play around your heal. Make sure that you're not denying your own heal, basically, okay? So let's swing with our Vanguards here. They're both the same number because they both have the same basis. So this is 2528, which is a very, very nice number to work with. So Twin Drive first check, Jill, second check, Doriane. We drew into all our Dorianes. What the hell? That's too bad, but like, it's fine. Swing with our 28k as well. Vanguard here. First check, nothing. Second check, draw trigger. So give power, draw a card, and give power. Let's say give it here. This is swinging for 27 and swing for 29. Okay. With that, let's proceed to end phase. End phase, moving everything back to the soul. This 4 cards right here will be moving back to the soul. They're all rear guards anyway. Put it back to the soul. Since you put 4, you draw 2 cards, 1 and 2. And then since you put 4 or more cards from your field to the soul, get a grade 3 silver thorn. Oops. Get a grade 3 silver thorn from your soul to your hand. Now let's see our hand size. 5, 10, 12. We have 12 cards in hand at the end of the turn. That is a massive plus for the deck. And on top of that, we only used 1 CB. Now, as you noticed, we only have 4 attacks, but massive numbers and 2 Vanguard swings, which is not that bad at all. This deck lacks offense, but it has a bunch of plus to compensate for it. It just means that you can survive a bit longer, and you can replenish your hand every now and then if you need to. And you can also switch playstyles as well. Now let's proceed to taking more damage. So this goes here, draw and draw a card. Let's commit some guard value, guard with this. You can just commit the additional bunnies that you have. It's fine. We don't have a PG yet. You can commit this if you can. If you want to. Let's proceed with this, I guess. And let's proceed to standing our units and draw a card. Okay, let's write on to Tilaipse because we have the additional copies. XL2 and draw a card into a heal, which is not that bad. Okay, so here, I actually want to try to push now. And also try to showcase that you can also use Clarina and Doriane in the same turn. So let's proceed with this. You're gonna CB1, putting 2 cards from your hand to the soul. Let's first check our soul. As I said before, if you want to go for the Clarina turn, you need to make sure that you check first on what utilities you have. You have 2 Rising Dragons in soul. You have a Jill also in hand, which is really nice. An Amusing Bunny. You have 2 Excel Circles. You have an Endive Beast Tamer. You have everything basically, right? In this situation, the way that I want to maximize this turn is like this. I'll put these 2, as I said before, because these 2 are just dead in hand, and call 2 cards. I want to call the Clarina over here and the Rising Dragon here. And then Clarina is the additional Vanguard. Next, with the Endive Beast Tamer that I have in hand, I'll call it here. I'll rest CB1, choose this column, and call 2 cards. Call this and call Amusing Bunny, which is a very important piece. How many rear guards do we have? 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so with that, it's actually fine to keep it as it is. Oh, only 3 bunnies overall. This Rising Dragon is going to be hitting for 27. If you're up against a force, it's not going to hit that big of a number. Just to be sure, maybe we can commit 1 more card from our hand. Let's call Masquerade Bunny over here. Check top 5 and whiff. And then with this, we have 4 bunnies overall now. This also hits for 18 with that number, so it's really nice to work with. It's also twin drive. This board is actually really strong. Oh, let's put some power first. Let's first swing with our Vanguard. In case we heal, we can still heal at the same time. It's the weakest Vanguard swing so far, along with Clarina, but you want to swing with your Clarina later. And you can give the power that you check here to the Clarina instead if you can. And still you want to empty out your board in order to maximize Clarina's skill. So this is the best option you can do right now. First check, nothing. Second check, heal. See, we check the heal. So we give power to Clarina. Every number here almost has the same value, so it doesn't really matter what you choose here. The important thing here is swing with this. Even though everything has the same value, I would much rather just swing with this first because this is the most important part of the board. So swing with this, swing in for 17, 27, 31. And after that, let's move Rising Dragon to Soul using the skill of Amusing Bunny. Let's swing with our Clarina next. Let's use the skill of Clarina. Let's move the one copy of Jill that we have in our hand into the Soul. Call the Jill here. Use the skill of Jill to move this and call Masquerade Bunny over here. And now we have a swinging 14, 24, 28 Twin Drive. First check, nothing. Second check, heal again. Let's assume that we don't heal. So with this, give power to... Let's say we give power to this. This also gets +5 by the way, so yeah. Let's now proceed with swinging with the rest of the units, okay? This swings for 24, 28. This swings for 25, 29. This swings for 22, 32, 36. And then with that, let's proceed to the end phase if you don't kill your opponent yet. So in the end phase, which are the ones here that are just rear guards? So these 5 are the rear guards. Let's proceed with this. This is a Vanguard, so it can't be scooped to the Soul. We're gonna draw 2 cards from Doriane's skill. Fetch a Doriane from our Soul to our hand. Move everything to Soul. Retire this. And pass the turn. So, let's take a look at our hand size. We still have 11 cards in hand. We're in die arm range, but like, you know. So as you can see, as I mentioned at the beginning of the video as well, you can still use Clarina and Doriane in this same turn, which is really nice. You can multi-attack and have hand size at the same time. You can just keep doing this until you win or you lose or you deck out. And as you can see, it's fairly strong, it's fairly consistent. It's quite reliable. Your hand size is always healthy because of Doriane. It really does everything and it's really fun to play. However, it does require a bit of a setup, a bit of practice here and there because there are some tricky parts here. Like for example, placements of units. Like for example, placements of your Endive Beast Tamer, your 13k boosters with Masquerade Bunny, your placement of utility grade 2s, which are Jills and your Rising Dragons, placement of your additional Vanguard, which Vanguard to go to, and all of those can only be answered through practice. Hopefully this part of the video helped a lot, and good luck to everybody who wants to try this deck. And always remember to have fun because this deck is really fun to play. Okay, so before we end the video, I would like to share first another deck list for you guys to try out. If you want to incorporate GBT in this deck list, in order for you to have another option to work within your deck list, you can actually do so because I am doing that right now. If you still want to run Golden Beast Tamer in your build, you can do so by removing one Doriane and then put in GBT. At the same time, if you want to run Amaranth Beast Tamer still because it's another option to work with, you can also do so by removing one copy of Endive Beast Tamer and just put in Amaranth Beast Tamer instead. This way, you can play both GBT, Doriane, and Clarina in one deck. So the play now with this build is that you can farm your hand using Doriane, and you can switch between Clarina and Doriane still, and at the same time, if you drew into Golden Beast Tamer in the late game, you can use GBT as your quote-unquote finisher in order to produce the most attacks you can do with this deck. And the reason for Amaranth Beast Tamer to be included is that Golden Beast Tamer requires you to at least have 2 units on the board that can put units from your board to the Soul, like for example Amusing Bunny. Amaranth Beast Tamer does the same, but it's just in a different timing. And yeah, that's it. We've successfully finished all 3 different versions of Tilaipse. I hope you enjoyed this deck profile. Have fun with exploring all the different things that Tilaipse can do. I wish you all the best. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.